There is no cure for aging as of yet. There are a number of organizations and research scientists working actively to find cure for aging. One of the research scientists that I follow is Dr. Bill Andrews, and his approach towards curing aging is by lengthening the telomeres of our chromosomes. The way he tries to do it is to induce the enzyme telomerase that will add the telomeres to the chromosomes. He has talked about the gene therapy that can increase the length of the telomeres. But unfortunately, the clinical trials has not been able to progress. He has scheduled it many times over the past several years, but they have not been able to proceed due to many unexpected reasons. And as of this year, there's no immediate planned clinical trials for the telomere gene therapy. But that is still a promising area of study and a research that is worth to follow. He talks about how he has seen in the lab how increasing the telomeres lets the cells keep dividing without reaching the Hayflick's limit. So there has to be something that he has seen in the labs, and he understands that he believes that telomeres is a key factor in aging, and increasing the telomere size and restoring them will have a rejuvenating effect on human beings. Now you may have seen this study on mice where mice were engineered to age by telomeres, and then later their telomeres were lengthened by gene therapy, and then their aging was reversed in many ways, right? Invisibly, and in also their physical activities were sharply enhanced. So that is a notable experiment showing how increasing the length of telomeres can reverse aging and rejuvenate the organism like mice. Now, the same effect, will it happen in human beings? We do not know. But if we were to do the clinical trials, as Bill Andrew talks about, we should see the results fairly soon if there is any result. So this is still an interesting and noteworthy area of research in the area of curing aging. We have also heard about Liz Paris, who had similar gene therapy, and including the telomere gene therapy. Now, in her case, she had the therapy when she was in her 40s, and she was at the stage where she was youthful. She was not an aging person by any means, and so we do not see visible, reversal of aging in her case, although she seems to have maintained her youthful state since her gene therapy. But if we were to have this kind of therapy on an elderly person, who is visibly aging, old and fragile, we should see a noticeable difference if this works. If this method works, there should be a visible, notable difference from their state of being old and aged person and rejuvenation after the gene therapy. Another factor in this study is the cost. Bill Andrews talks about how it costs about $1 million for each treatment. Now, that is a lot of money. I mean, most people cannot afford it, obviously, but considering this is in the trial phase and research phase, that is actually not that much money, I feel. And if the therapy works, if there is verifiable results, good results from those clinical trials, eventually the price has to come down and it should be affordable for more population. But again, the key factor is it has to produce verifiable progress and results. Because, see, once we have the know-how and we have the procedure, it is a matter of training more medical professionals and replicating the equipments and the instruments that are used to generate the necessary logistics for the therapies. So now let's say from $1 million per therapy per person, if the price comes down to even let's say 100,000 per person, I think in the Western world there will be a significant number of population who will be able to afford it. Now, let's say if you have a therapy for $100,000 and it gives a verifiable, rejuvenation, reliable rejuvenation for let's say even 20 years, that means the elderly people can go back to work for another 20 years and they can actually use their retirement fund to pay for the rejuvenation therapy. So again, even if it's like $100,000 per treatment, there will be a good number of people who will be able to afford it, at least in the Western world. Then eventually, once this becomes notable for more population, we can assume that other countries like China and India will rapidly catch up and come up with their own version of such therapies. Now, the people who initially design and develop the procedure, they deserve the highest credit and financial benefit for the research and the outcome of this kind of therapies. And eventually, it will be relatively easier for other teams, other countries to develop such therapies, because once we know what's possible, once the procedure is there, it is relatively easier for other teams to catch up and replicate that kind of results. Now, once there is a cure for aging or rejuvenation therapies, one of the areas of concern that we hear is the concern about overpopulation. Now some would say that no, that is not a concern. There's enough resources to sustain much bigger population in the world than that we have today. And to some extent that is correct. So let's say if there is a sudden, is relatively short, in short period of time, we have a significant progress in the area of rejuvenation, and people stop dying of old age in a relatively short period of time in the future, then the population will increase it can increase by maybe 50 to 100 million a year, right? So we have more, let's say the population may start increasing by 150 million a year. Now, in the short term, that also means that productivity will increase, because many of the people who are traditionally aged and old people, they will be able to go back to work. They will be productive members of the society. The economy may grow. There will be less cost to treat old and aging people. So the economy will likely grow and improve in the short term. Short term as in, next 10 to 15 years. Then in the long run, however, the overpopulation is still a concern. It is a valid concern, and it will need to be managed, right? Because if old people stop dying and the birth rate remains the same, eventually there is a risk of running out of space, running out of resources. I mean, there is still limited space on Earth, limited resources. So there will be need for consideration of management of maybe birth rate, management of resources, and so on. And knowing human nature, it may not be easy to manage those. Now, in terms of birth rate, if the population can live significantly longer, but let's say the fertility period of women still remains the same, as in, up to about 40 years of age, women still have only up to 40 years of age to have fertility in a healthy way, then the women may still need to be in a situation, will be in a situation where they want to have kids, right? They don't want to wait until, even if they know they are going to live for hundreds of years, they still need to have children by the time they are 40. So in such case, then the birth rate may not significantly decrease, even if the lifespan is significantly increased. So that will need to be addressed. So there will need to be some ways to have the option to have children at much later stage in life. Maybe it's through preserving the egg and maintaining fertility in some other way. So that way, people don't need to be in a hurry to have children, and they can wait for longer periods of time. Now, if that kind of situation is achieved, then it is likely that most people will want to wait for having children. They will be more likely to cooperate with the required management of the population control. See, because the current desire to have children for most people is very much tied to the healthy lifespan, right? So because women want to have children by the time they're 40 because they start to lose fertility after that age. Men want to have children by the time they're 40 or 50 because they start to age, right? They will not be able to be active parents. They will not be able to live long enough to take care of their kids, even if you don't have to give birth to the child. So aging, health, longevity is a major factor in deciding when people want to have children. So if the aging itself can be delayed significantly, then people will not be in a hurry to have children, both men and women, and especially if the fertility is also extended for women. Now, there may also be need for some drastic changes in policy, like we've seen how in China until recent decades they had a one-child policy. And if it comes to extreme situations where there is real danger of lack of resources, then governments may need to implement such policies. And that can happen, like we have seen during the pandemic, how there are policies that ordinarily we would assume impossible or not acceptable, but when it comes to dire situation, we have to implement policies and rules and restrictions for survival of population as a whole. So what else would change if there is cure for aging? People wanting to change career, that is another possibility, because right now, the span or the period where people can learn new skills is fairly limited, to the time they're in school, college, and in their 20s. And then the opportunity and the situations to change career significantly reduces, or it becomes much difficult once they are in their 40s and 50s. Part of it is the mental ability to learn new things and new ways as we get older. So if the rejuvenation will rejuvenate our brains and our mind and our ability to learn, we will be more likely to change careers. There will be no retirement as like it is now. I think people may still have funds for retirements that they can use for something else. Maybe there will be temporary retirements, maybe 5-year retirement, or retirements for changing the career, going back to school, raising kids. So temporary retirements as opposed to permanent retirement as of now. Now, another question is, will people want to take these rejuvenation therapies? It seems like most people will. Now, they may not want to live forever. There may be people who simply says, well, I don't want to live forever. So if they are healthy, I don't think they may not be interested. But once they start to feel aging, once they start to feel suffering due to age-related diseases, they will want the treatments. So even though they may say they don't want to live forever, once they start having aching, chronic pain and suffering, it will be difficult for people to deny the therapies that will rejuvenate their health. So even though people may complain about it, people may not like the idea of living a very long life, practically they may accept in the form of medical treatments for their chronic diseases that comes with age. One of the comparable area is the area of stem cell research. Stem cell research and stem cell treatments are still experimental in many ways, but we can see how even slight hope of treatment, of verifiable treatments that works to cure diseases is encouraging for people, and people are willing to take risks. People are willing to spend thousands of dollars and even go into other countries to get treatments for of stem cell therapies. So similar things may happen in terms of cure for aging if there is even some results that we can verifiably demonstrate that can rejuvenate an elderly person. There will be people willing to take therapies, take risks, spend money to get that rejuvenation treatment. Now, how long will it take to find the cure for aging? That is still a big question. Again, there are many scientists, researchers, organizations working on it. Funding is still a major difficulty. Currently, the people who take this seriously are a very small number of population. There is also a pro-aging phenomenon where many people don't like the idea of finding cure for aging. That actually shouldn't even matter, because we only need a small percentage of the population, like 1% or even less. If we have even, let's say, 20 or 30 million people who are willing to take this seriously and donate money for this cause, there should be enough funding to make good progress in the area of finding cure for aging, and the rest will just follow. So in terms of advocacy, we don't need to convince everyone that this is a good idea, the idea to find cure for aging. If we can convince only even a small percentage, I'm talking 1% or even 0.5% of the world population, to engage in this movement and help to fund this cure for aging, we will make a significant progress. But as of now, the number of people or the percentage who are taking this seriously is very small. It's not even 0.5%. It could actually be in few tens of thousands. So that area needs a significant improvement if we are to make significant progress to find cure for aging. And we can only do what we can in terms of research and efforts. The actual time it will take is still unknown. I mean, there are certainly things that the researchers can try. We know about telomeres, obviously, and other areas like senolytics, other rejuvenation experiments, NAD+. There's many therapies and possible treatments that we hear of. But still, we don't know what it takes. It may be within the corner. It may be a matter of trying for a few more years, or there may be other processes that are very difficult to overcome, because so far it does not seem like there is one or two methods to cure aging. It seems to be a combination of many factors. So we could be close or we could be very far. As we do more research, we may find there are much more complexities and much more difficulties we have to overcome, right? Maybe we have to be lucky to find maybe one molecule or one therapy that will give us significant improvement in terms of curing aging. Now, is it possible to find cure for aging? It seems possible, because one of the ways to evaluate that is looking at how we can manipulate the aging process of animals, how we see that different animals age at different rate. Let's say, for example, whales live much longer than humans, and humans live much longer than mice, and how the aging of mice can be manipulated, right, by caloric restriction and gene therapies. I mean, we're talking manipulation by several folds, by as much as 10 times. So that shows that it is possible to control aging and manipulate aging. It's not a constant in nature. It can be manipulated within organisms, and different organisms have different methods and different mechanisms in terms of how they age. So it should be possible if we keep trying to manipulate our own aging in human beings. And in terms of how long can we live, some people talk about extending healthy lifespan to 100 years, 125, 150 years. It seems like, however, if we can extend by a significant amount of time, let's say 20 or 30 years, if we can extend our healthy lifespan, youthful lifespan by even 30 years, we would have cracked the code of curing aging. I mean, it is likely that we have gained the longevity escape velocity. So for example, if we can extend a healthy human lifespan to, let's say, 125 or 130 years, even with that much extension, I think we would have learned so much about aging, and that may mean that we have achieved longevity escape velocity. So let's say if we are to live, if we have a human beings living, if we can make human beings live up to 150 years, there's a very good possibility that we can extend further into 200 years or and beyond. So I think the first breakthrough is the most important one and the most difficult one, because once we make that major breakthrough, it is likely that it will be relatively easier to keep extending the human lifespan. So it does not seem like there is things like, extending for 50 years or 100 years. But once we achieve even 50 years of age extension, very likely that we have reached longevity escape velocity, right? And we can keep extending again and again. Now, how long would we want to live? Like, so if we cure aging, and if we don't, let's say if we don't die from accidents, do we want to live forever? That is not an easy question to answer. I mean, we can think of, living day by day. I mean, there's always a reason to live another day. As of now, I think many people would want to live, a healthy 100 years. Now, what about, 500 years, 1,000 years? Do people want to keep living that long? Maybe, maybe not. We don't have the experience of having lived that long. It could be that after we live, 100, 200 years, we may feel that, we've lived enough. It's time to go. Even though there is so many things to do. I mean, as of now, we can always think of something new to do, something new to learn. There's so much to learn and explore in the world and beyond. But maybe if we've lived, for hundreds of years, we may not have the desire. It may feel like the same old thing, even new things. How our mental psychology and human nature will evolve as we have that ability to extend our human lives. We don't know. So as of now, it is still a good idea to have the option, at least, to extend our healthy lifespan. And whether, we will want to live forever, as in, thousands of years, that we will have to wait and see, so how our mentally and physically, our behavior will change in such situation. It's difficult to exactly predict at this time. But it's a good idea to extend lifespan and live for at least 200 years, let's say. So as of now, we continue to try, wish, and hope to find the cure for aging.